AITA for dumping my girlfriend after her best friend turned her against me? I am 28 years old, and I was dating an incredible woman, Maya, who is 26. We had been together for a little over a year, and for the most part, everything was going well. I was completely into her. She is smart, funny, everything you could want in a partner. But there was one thing that was always a thorn in my side: her best friend, Jake. Let me be clear, I am not the jealous type. At least, I try not to be. I have always believed in giving people their space and trusting them. But with Jake, honestly, it was complicated. Jake is 27 and has been Maya's ride or die since they were in college. I knew they were close from the start, and at first, I did not pay much attention to it. Everyone has a best friend, right? No big deal. But over time, I started noticing things. They are not just close, they are extremely close. I mean the kind of closeness where I felt like I was crashing their relationship rather than being in a relationship with Maya. Have you ever felt like a third wheel on your own date? That was me all the time. Let me give you an example. On a random Tuesday night, Maya and I had planned to have a quiet evening at my apartment. In my mind, we would watch a movie, order some Thai food from DoorDash, and just relax together. But then Jake calls, and suddenly she is all excited about grabbing drinks with him at some new brewery downtown. And just like that, our plans went down the drain. She did not even say, "Do you want to come with us?" It was as if I did not exist. And the worst part is, this did not happen just once. It happened often. They have these regular outings, dinners, parties, movies, late-night drives to get milkshakes, the kind of things couples usually do. And every time I brought it up, she would just reply, "Oh, it's just Jake. You know how we are." Yes, I know exactly how you are, and that is precisely the problem. There is one night I remember very clearly. We were supposed to have a quiet evening, just the two of us. But guess what? Jake showed up again, this time metaphorically. He had a bad day at work, so Maya felt the need to spend 2 hours on FaceTime, comforting him. And there I was, sitting on the couch, wondering, what about us? But obviously, Jake's needs took priority. And the worst part of it all is when I did manage to tag along on their outings, it was super awkward. They have their own little world, their inside jokes from college, their shared memories, and I am just there, trying to keep up. You know that feeling when everyone in the room is laughing, but you have no idea what is funny? That was my reality. Every time I was with them, it was like they were speaking their own language, and I was desperately trying to find a translation app. At first, I tried to be cool about it. I told myself, they have been friends for years, it is no big deal, you are just being paranoid. But then I started noticing the little details that made me genuinely uncomfortable. For example, Jake texts her constantly. I mean morning, noon, and night. Even when we are together, her phone is buzzing because of him, and these are not just casual messages. He calls her babe and sweetheart. Who does that with his best friend when she is in a serious relationship? Once, we were out on a nice date, and her phone kept lighting up with messages from him. I asked her what was so important, and she just laughed it off, saying, "That's just how we talk. It doesn't mean anything." But it felt wrong. I mean, I am her boyfriend. Those little nicknames should be reserved for me, right? And then there are the late-night FaceTime calls. I remember waking up in the middle of the night to find her whispering and giggling on the phone with him. The next morning, I asked her what was going on, and she told me Jake was going through a tough time and needed someone to talk to. Okay, I can understand that. But why is she always the only one he needs? Why cannot he talk to his other friends, or, I do not know, handle his problems like an adult? I know some people will say, "Dude, relax. They are just friends." And believe me, I tried. But it is hard when you feel like you are constantly in second place. A relationship is supposed to be between two people, not three. What gets me the most is how hard I try to be understanding. I swallowed my pride, stifled my insecurities, and tried to be the mature one. But there is a limit to what a person can take before feeling like a background character in my own life. I am not asking for much. I never told her to cut Jake out of her life. I understand they have a history, but would it kill her to set some boundaries? To not always put him before me? To not use nicknames that make it seem like they are more than just friends? Is that really too much to ask? Honestly, I was at my wit's end. I love Maya, but this whole thing with Jake was making me question everything. I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to come off as the jealous, controlling boyfriend. But at what point do my feelings matter? At what point do I get to say, hey, I am not okay with this? Another time, we were out on a date. We had just settled into a nice little Italian restaurant. Everything was going well, and then her phone vibrated on the table. She took a look, and I saw her face light up. It was Jake, obviously. She spent the next 10 minutes texting him back and forth while I sat there, swirling the ice in my water glass. I finally asked if she could put her phone away for a bit, and she looked at me like I had asked for the impossible. It's just Jake, she said. It's no big deal. No big deal. I felt like I was sitting alone at the table while she was on a digital date with him. I was starting to feel like the supporting role to this guy, and it was really getting to me. With every buzz of her phone, I would get that knot in my stomach, wondering if it was him again. Then there was the weekend getaway we were planning. We had been talking about it for weeks, and I was really looking forward to it. It was supposed to be a trip just for us, away from all the distractions of the city. But of course, Jake managed to insert himself into that, too. He found out that an indie band they both loved was playing a show that same weekend and asked Maya to go with him. And you know what she did? She asked me if we could postpone our trip so she could go to the concert with Jake. I could not believe it. We were talking about a romantic weekend, and she was ready to toss it aside for a concert with him. When I asked her why she could not simply skip the concert, she got defensive. It's a band we both have loved since college, she said. I can't miss this with him. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Our relationship was supposed to be important, but I always felt like I was coming in second place to Jake. And it was not just the texts or the FaceTime calls. It was the way her eyes lit up when he was around, their endless inside jokes, the fact that she would drop everything for him in a heartbeat. I started to notice how much she changed when Jake entered the picture. She seemed happier, more energetic, as if he brought out a side of her that I could not reach. It made me feel like a terrible boyfriend, like I was not enough for her. But what really destroyed me was how she downplayed my feelings. Every time I tried to explain how uncomfortable her relationship with Jake made me, she brushed it off. You are being ridiculous, she would say. Jake is just my friend. You do not have to worry about him. But how could I not worry when I felt like he was constantly in the middle of our relationship? It was not just about the nicknames, the texts, or the late-night calls. It was about the fact that I felt like I was competing for her attention, and no matter what I did, I always lost. I started wondering if I was crazy for feeling this way, if I was just too insecure or jealous. But deep down, I knew something was fundamentally wrong. I was not asking her to cut him completely out of her life. I just wanted her to understand how much it hurt to be constantly pushed aside for him. But no matter how many times I tried to talk to her about it, she always dismissed my concerns, telling me I was just making things up in my head. It was like my feelings did not matter at all, like I was supposed to just suck it up and deal with it. And that is when I started realizing that maybe it was not just about Jake. Maybe it was something deeper. Maybe the real problem was that Maya did not seem to care about the impact her actions had on me. And that hurt more than anything Jake could have ever done. Anyway, I still tried to keep our relationship going despite everything that was happening. I kept telling myself I just needed to be patient, that one day she would finally see how much all of this was affecting me. But my patience finally ran out one weekend, and it did not go well at all. Here is the context. Maya and I had been planning this anniversary trip for months. We were both super excited. Or at least, that is what I thought. Everything was planned. A cozy little cabin upstate, hiking trails, just the two of us away from all the noise. It was supposed to be our time, you know, a break from everyday life. And I had hoped, a break from Jake, too. But a few days before we were supposed to leave, Maya dropped a bomb on me. She said something along the lines of, hey, so Jake just found out that one of our favorite bands is playing that same weekend. We have both loved them forever, and he would really like me to go with him. I stood there, completely stunned, waiting for her to add. But obviously I told him no because we have our trip. Except she did not. Instead, she followed up with, do you think we could postpone our trip so I can go? Postpone. I could not believe my ears. It was our anniversary, something we had been planning for months. And now she wanted to push everything back for a last-minute concert with Jake. I tried to stay calm, but I felt the anger rising. I asked her why Jake could not go alone or with someone else. Why did it have to be her? She looked at me like I was being completely unreasonable. You don't understand, she told me. This band means the world to us. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I can't miss it. And that was the moment I realized where I truly stood in this relationship. No matter the situation, Jake would always come first. I told her straight up, Maya, this isn't normal. You are asking me, once again, to step aside for Jake. I feel like I am constantly competing with him for your time and attention, and I am sick of it. But she just waved it off, saying I was overreacting and that it was not that big of a deal. You knew Jake was part of my life when we started dating, she added. Why are you trying to change me now? That hurt a lot. I was not trying to change her. I just wanted to feel like I was a priority, too. To feel like our relationship actually mattered. But in that moment, it felt like I was asking for the impossible. She was so defensive that she could not even see my point of view. Then she said something that really set me off. Jake even said he thinks you are being controlling and insecure, she threw at me. Great. Now her best friend was giving his 2 cents on our relationship. Why did his opinion even matter? This was supposed to be a conversation between the two of us, not with him in the middle of it. I told her I needed clear boundaries. No more pet names with Jake, no more constant one-on-one hangouts, and above all, no more situations where she put him ahead of our relationship. But she blew up. She called me controlling and said I was being toxic. It was like she was not even hearing me. All I asked for was a minimum of respect. But in her eyes, I had become the villain. We argued for hours. I tried over and over to explain how I felt, how much it hurt to always be the second choice. But she only doubled down, repeating that I was the problem. She even ended up saying, if you can't accept that Jake is part of my life, then maybe this won't work out between us. That is when I knew we had reached a breaking point. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. I could no longer ignore how much this situation was destroying me. I loved Maya, but I could not keep sacrificing my own happiness just to avoid conflict. It was not fair to me. After that fight, she started ignoring my texts and calls. Radio silence. I found myself alone with my thoughts, replaying everything on a loop. I kept wondering if I really was the problem, if I was being too sensitive or too controlling. But deep down, I knew that was not it. I was not asking for anything unreasonable. I just wanted to matter. I thought back to all the times I had made her my priority, all the sacrifices I had made for us. And in return, what did I get? More time for Jake, less for me. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle. No matter how hard I tried, I was never going to win. This weekend was supposed to be a celebration of us, a chance to grow closer and strengthen our bond. Instead, it became yet another reminder of the tiny space I occupied on her priority list. I realized I could not live like this anymore. Something had to change, or I was going to lose myself completely. That was the moment I decided to give her an ultimatum. I did not want it to come to this, but I felt like I had no other choice. Either she finally set real boundaries with Jake, or we were done. I did not know how she would react, but I knew one thing for sure. I could not go on like this. I needed to know if she was willing to fight for us, or if I was simply wasting my time. In that moment, I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness, anger, frustration, but also an odd sense of relief. I had finally said what was on my mind, put everything on the table. Now, it was up to her to decide what she wanted, and honestly, I was not sure I was ready to hear her answer. After the argument about the concert, I knew something had to give. I was tired of being the guy who got pushed aside the second Jake decided he needed Maya's attention. I loved her, yes, but I could no longer keep feeling like a perpetual runner-up in my own relationship. It was draining all my energy, and I just could not take it anymore. That is when I knew I had to draw a line in the sand. I did not go into it thinking, all right, I'll just throw out an ultimatum and everything will be fine. Frankly, I hate the very idea of ultimatums. I have always thought they were a last resort, something you do when you are desperate. But at this point, I was desperate. I needed her to understand how much this was destroying me. So, one evening, I had her come over to my place. No distractions, no phone buzzing with messages from Jake, just the two of us. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was pounding. I did not know how she would react, but I could not back down now. I told her straight up, Maya, we need to talk about Jake. She sighed, visibly annoyed. We have already talked about this, she replied, like it was a minor inconvenience. But to me, it was huge. I know we have talked about it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But nothing has changed, and I can't go on like this anymore. I feel like I'm constantly fighting for your attention, and Jake always wins. She rolled her eyes, which, believe me, did not help the situation at all. You are being ridiculous. Jake is my best friend. He has always been there for me. You knew this when we started dating. I knew it, I admitted. But I didn't know it would make me feel like this. Like I'm just a placeholder in your life, while Jake gets the part of you that actually matters. That seemed to get her attention, at least a little. She frowned, but this time she did not interrupt me. So I continued. I am not asking you to stop being friends with him. I know you guys are close, but there have to be boundaries. I am your boyfriend, Maya. I should be the one you turn to first, not him. She crossed her arms, clearly on the defensive. What kind of boundaries? She asked, her tone almost a challenge. No more pet names, I replied, listing my points. No more constant one-on-one hangouts that derail our plans. And most importantly, you can never put him before me again. When we are together, I need to feel like I matter, that I'm not just some guy you are killing time with until Jake is available. Her face was hard to read, but I could tell she was not happy. And what if I don't? We're over, she asked sharply. I hesitated, but only for a second. Yes, I said, my throat tight. If you can't do that, then maybe we shouldn't be together anymore. Silence. She stared at me, and for a moment, I thought she was actually going to take me seriously. Then she shook her head and let out a bitter laugh. You are giving me an ultimatum? That's not fair. I know it's not ideal, I acknowledged, but I don't know what else to do. I have tried talking to you about this, and nothing has changed. I am not trying to control you, Maya. I just want to feel like your partner, not an extra in your personal drama. She did not say anything for a while, and the silence was brutal. I could feel the entire weight of our relationship hanging in the air. It was suffocating. Finally, she spoke. You are asking me to change who I am, she said quietly. No, I replied, shaking my head. I am asking you to see the impact this has on me. I am asking you to take a step toward me. She looked down at her hands, and for a second, I thought she was genuinely going to think about it. Then she sighed and blurted out. Jake said you were just being controlling. That hit me like a slap in the face. Again with his opinion. This was not about him. It was about us. She looked flustered, as if she had not meant to say that out loud. The silence settled in again. I felt the anger and frustration building up inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing my temper would not have helped. I don't want to be the bad guy in this, I said softly. I just want to be with you without feeling like I have to fight for your attention. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something shift in her eyes. Maybe it was guilt, maybe a realization, I do not know. But she did not add anything else. She simply nodded slowly, as if she was processing it all. I need to think about it, she finally whispered. Take all the time you need, I replied, standing up. But know that I am serious, Maya. I can't go on like this. With those words, I walked into my kitchen, leaving her alone in the living room. I did not know what would happen next, but I knew I had done all I could. Now, the decision was hers, and whatever she chose, I had to be ready to accept it. I really did not know what to expect after giving Maya that ultimatum. A part of me thought she would leave and go straight to Jake's place. I had braced myself for the worst. But what happened next, honestly, I did not see coming. It was a Saturday night, a few days after our huge fight. I was at home, mentally preparing for whatever was coming. I did not expect her to show up at my door, but there she was, looking nervous and clutching her phone like a life preserver. Can we talk? She asked, her voice softer than I had heard it in a long time. I stepped aside to let her in, my heart pounding in my chest. I did not know if this was going to be another argument, but we could not leave things hanging like this. She sat on the edge of the couch, fidgeting with her hands. I have been thinking a lot about what you said, she started, without looking at me. About Jake, about us. I stayed quiet, waiting for her to continue. I did not want to rush her, but I also was not going to let her off the hook without addressing the core issue. I canceled on the concert, she finally said, looking up at me. I told Jake I couldn't go. That completely caught me off guard. I did not expect her to actually do it. Why? I asked, trying not to sound too hopeful. She took a deep breath. Because I realized you were right. I have been putting you second to Jake, and that is not fair. I didn't see it before, but I understand now. I could tell the words were hard for her to say, as if admitting them physically hurt. But she kept going. I have been selfish, she admitted. I was so wrapped up in my friendship with Jake that I didn't think about the impact it was having on you. And I am so sorry. Hearing her say that felt like a massive weight lifting off my chest. But at the same time, I could not help but wonder if it was too little, too late. Why now? I asked. Why did it take an ultimatum for you to realize this? She hesitated, then answered. Because I was scared. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't want to lose Jake either. I thought I could have both without it being a problem, but I was wrong. Her honesty hit me. I could see she was being sincere, and this was not easy for her. But I was not going to sweep everything under the rug just because of a few remorseful words. I appreciate your apology, I said slowly. But this isn't just about one concert. It's about everything. The texts, the nicknames, the late-night calls. It has been building up for a long time, Maya. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I know, she whispered. And I don't want to hurt you anymore. I want to fix this. I want to be better. It was a lot to take in. I could see she was genuinely trying. But trust is not rebuilt overnight. It is going to take more than words, I told her. I need to see real changes. I need to feel like I am a priority in your life. I understand, she replied, wiping away a tear. And I am ready to show you. I want us to spend this weekend together, just the two of us. No distractions, no Jake. I want to make things right. I did not know what to say. A part of me was still on the defensive, refusing to get my hopes up, but another part wanted to believe her. To think that maybe, just maybe, we could turn things around. All right, I finally said. We will see how it goes. She gave me a small, hesitant smile, as if she was not sure I was being serious. But I was. I was willing to give her a chance to prove herself, even though I did not know if it would be enough. We spent the rest of the evening just talking. No big plans, no distractions, just the two of us trying to reconnect. It was awkward at first. Then, as the evening went on, things started to feel easier, as if we were slowly finding our way back to each other. She opened up about her friendship with Jake, telling me things I did not know. How he had been there for her during some really tough times in college, how their bond had been forged through shared hardships. It helped me understand why he meant so much to her, even if it did not entirely excuse her behavior. On my end, I explained again how it felt to be pushed aside, to always come in second. I told her how much it hurt to feel like I was not enough, like I was just an afterthought in her life. By the time we went to bed, I was emotionally exhausted but also felt lighter. Nothing was magically fixed, but it was a start. We were finally having the conversations we should have had a long time ago. The next morning, she made us breakfast, and we spent the day together. No Jake, no interruptions, just us. It was nice, even though I knew a single good weekend would not be enough to fix what had been broken. Still, for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Maybe we could make this work if we both put in the effort. But I also knew I had to stay cautious. I could not let myself get swept up in the moment and forget all the pain that had led us to this point. Throughout the day, I caught myself wondering what the future would look like. Could we really move past all of this? Would she be able to maintain the boundaries I needed, or was this just a temporary fix for a deeper problem? I did not have all the answers, but for now, I was willing to take it one step at a time. We still had a long way to go, but at least we were finally on the same page, and for me, that was a step in the right direction. After that intense conversation, Maya and I decided to spend the weekend together, focusing on us and trying to rebuild what was falling apart. I was still on edge, unsure if anything could truly repair the damage, but I was willing to try. Friday night started simply. Dinner, a movie, and a conscious effort to be present with each other. We were making pasta in my kitchen, nothing complicated. It was nice, almost like how it was in the beginning when everything was easy and light. We laughed, talked about unimportant things, and for a moment, I felt like we were really on the right track. Then, in the middle of dinner, Maya put her fork down and gave me a specific look. The one that lets you know a serious conversation is coming. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice a little shaky. My heart skipped a beat. I braced myself for the worst, thinking she was going to drop another bomb about Jake or something even more complicated. The air felt heavy as I waited. I am pregnant, she finally whispered. I froze, my brain struggling to process the words. You are pregnant? She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I found out a few days ago. I did not know how to tell you. I was scared at first. I was in shock. This was not something we had really talked about, at least not in a serious way. But as the words sank in, a wave of emotion washed over me. Surprise, obviously, but also a strange mix of happiness and anxiety. I stood up, walked over to her side of the table, and pulled her into my arms. "Wow," I said, still processing. "That is incredible." She clung to me, and for a moment, everything felt right. It was huge, overwhelming, but it also felt like a fresh start, like something that could bring us closer together. We spent the rest of the evening discussing what it all meant. Sitting on the couch, our fingers intertwined, we talked about baby names, financial planning, the space in my apartment, and how we would tell our families. Maya looked genuinely happy, and I started to believe that maybe this was exactly what we needed to move forward. But as the initial shock and excitement began to settle, a nagging thought started to creep into the back of my mind. I could not shake it. The next morning, we went for a walk in the park. It was one of those crisp, bright autumn mornings that makes everything feel more alive. We talked more about the baby and our future, but that thought was still there, lurking. Back at my apartment, I noticed something strange. Maya's phone, which usually buzzed every 5 minutes with messages from Jake, was unnaturally quiet. No calls, no texts. I did not say anything at the time, but it was weird. Jake had always been an omnipresent force in our lives, and now, suddenly, there was nothing. As the day went on, I also noticed how much calmer Maya seemed. No distractions, no nervous glances at her phone. It was almost too quiet. I tried to push those thoughts away, to focus on us and the baby, but the doubt would not let me go. That evening, as we were sitting on the couch, I finally asked her about it. "Hey, I noticed Jake has not been in touch much lately. Is everything okay with him?" Maya hesitated for a second before answering. "Yeah, he is just giving us some space," she said, her voice a little too casual. "He knows we are trying to work things out, so he is stepping back for a bit." It sounded logical, but something about it rang false. Jake was not the type to just step back, especially after being so deeply involved. And then, the thought hit me like a ton of bricks. What if Jake knew something I did not? What if that was why he was keeping such a low profile? I did not say anything else, but the doubt only grew stronger. I kept replaying everything in my head. The sudden, tearful apologies, the pregnancy announcement, Jake's complete absence. Was there something else going on? Was it possible that Jake had been more than just a best friend? And now, learning about the baby, had he decided to pull away because he thought the child might be his? On Sunday morning, I woke up early, unable to shake those thoughts. I stared at the ceiling, trying to connect the dots. Maya was still sleeping beside me, looking peaceful, completely unaware of the storm raging in my head. As I got up to make coffee, I kept going over the timeline. If Maya had just found out she was pregnant, that meant the baby was conceived at least a couple of months ago, right around the time our relationship was at its absolute worst, and she was spending a ton of time with Jake. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together, and the picture they were forming was not a good one. I could not bring myself to ask her about it directly, not yet. But the doubt was there, eating me up from the inside. Was this baby really mine? Or was it possible that Jake was the father? And was that why he had suddenly vanished from her life? All day, I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. I watched Maya closely, looking for any sign that she might be hiding something. But she seemed genuinely happy, excited about the baby, and completely focused on us. It was confusing, to say the least. By Sunday evening, I was emotionally drained. I knew I needed answers, but I did not know how to get them without starting another massive fight. I did not want to ruin what had been a good weekend, but I could not keep these doubts locked up inside me either. As Maya was getting ready to leave, she noticed I was quieter than usual. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking worried. "Yeah," I lied, "just tired, I guess." She hugged me tightly before she left, and as I watched her walk down the hallway, I felt a confusing mix of emotions: love, fear, and a deep, unsettling doubt. I wanted to believe everything would be fine, that we could move forward and be happy together. But those lingering questions about Jake and the baby would not give me a moment of peace. That night, I stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling again, knowing that sooner or later, I would have to face the truth. The question was not just about the baby or Jake anymore. It was about trust. And at that moment, I no longer knew where we stood. After Maya left on Sunday evening, I could not shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. All weekend, I had tried to convince myself that we were moving forward, that things were finally getting better. But the doubts were still there, gnawing at me, especially about the baby. I could not sleep. My mind kept returning to Jake's sudden silence. This guy, who could not go a single day without texting or calling her, had just vanished. It did not add up. Something felt fundamentally wrong, like there was a much bigger story that Maya was not telling me. That night, as I was sitting on the couch, her phone vibrated. She had forgotten it on the coffee table. Normally, I would never even consider looking at it, but my gut was screaming at me. I hesitated for a second, then picked it up. I was not looking for trouble, but I just had to know. I opened her messages, scrolled down to her conversation with Jake, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Jake had blocked her. There was no profile picture, no recent messages, nothing. Just the system notification indicating that he had blocked her contact. Why would Jake block Maya? Especially now? Confused and feeling sick to my stomach, I scrolled further up in their chat history, and that is when I found the exchange that changed everything. It was a series of messages from a few weeks ago, right before Maya had told me about her pregnancy. Maya: Jake, I'm pregnant. Jake: what? Are you sure? Maya: yes, I'm sure. I took a test. Jake: it could be his. Maya: I don't know. Jake: I'm scared. Jake: if it's mine, I can't do this. I'm not ready to be a father. You should think about not continuing the pregnancy. The messages kept going, but his position was crystal clear. He wanted nothing to do with it, and after that last message, he had blocked her. Just like that. I stood there staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. She had told him before she told me, and the fact that she did not even know who the father was hit me like a physical blow. All the doubts, all the weird feelings I had tried to ignore, came rushing back all at once. She had been with him. There was no other explanation. Everything finally made sense. Her sudden, tearful apologies, her emotional vulnerability, Jake's abrupt disappearance from her life. She was hoping I would never find out the truth, that everything would just stay buried. I waited until the next morning to confront her. She showed up at my apartment with coffee, smiling as if everything was fine, but I could not take it anymore. We need to talk, I said, my voice cold and flat. She looked at me, her smile faltering. What's wrong? I held up her phone. I read your messages with Jake. All the color drained from her face. You what? I know, Maya, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I know you told him about the baby before you told me. I know he suggested you end the pregnancy because he didn't want to be a father, and I know you haven't been telling me the truth. She started to cry. I didn't know how to tell you, she whispered. I was so scared. My hands clenched into fists, not out of anger, but out of pure, crushing disappointment. You didn't know how to tell me? You didn't even know who the father was. Maya, you had an inappropriate relationship with him, and you thought I did not deserve to know the truth? She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said quietly. Things just went too far. I shook my head. And you thought hiding it from me was the solution? She wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. I was going to tell you eventually. I just needed some time. Well, guess what? I replied sharply. Time is up. We are going to settle this right now. I want a paternity test. She nodded, sobbing. Okay. We arranged for the test a few days later, and the results came back quickly. I was not the father. Deep down, I already knew it, but seeing it written there in black and white felt like a knife to the heart. When I showed her the results, she broke down all over again. I am so sorry, she sobbed. I didn't know. I just didn't know what to do. I could not even look at her anymore. And Jake? I asked. Did you tell him? She shook her head. He won't talk to me. He refuses to take a test. He wants nothing to do with it. That was the last straw. We are done, Maya, I said firmly. I can't do this anymore. You broke my trust, you lied to me, and now you expect me to stick around and help clean up this mess? No. I'm sorry, but no. She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Please, she begged. We can work through this. No, Maya, I replied, my voice icy. There is nothing left to work through. I can never trust you again. I can't be with someone who would lie to me about something this fundamental. Do not contact me again. And with those words, I walked away, leaving her there in tears. It hurt more than anything I had ever experienced, but I knew it was the right decision. I could not keep living a lie, and I could not be with someone who did not respect me enough to tell me the truth. Comment. It takes a lot of strength to navigate situations that test your sense of self-worth. Setting boundaries is not about controlling someone else. It is about respecting yourself. Your feelings are valid, and you deserve to be a priority in your own life. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is choose peace, even if it means walking away from something you once cared about. You are not responsible for fixing someone else's choices or their lack of integrity. Your responsibility is to protect your own well-being and create a life where you feel seen and valued. Healing is a journey, and it often begins the moment you decide that you deserve better. Always remember to lead with kindness, especially toward yourself during difficult times. I hope you always find the courage to honor your own heart. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.